Look at the more miles I put on my car, the more badges I unlock.
Okay, so while I am a well-professed Honda person, we all know someone who has had a Toyota, a Lexus, whomever, and generally the thing that you can expect them to say is that it's safe, it's reliable, and it's practical. But that's kind of the problem. You see, back when Toyota first came into the American market, it was expected that they were to outpace the American car makers with efficient yet practical and reliable cars. And they succeeded. Fast forward into 1990s, and that would be all that they would be known for. And so, having a little self-awareness, Toyota decided that they were going to focus their efforts on the incoming generation of buyers, as since they had hit the American market, it was time for some new blood to enter the arena. Thus, Project Genesis. But this video is not about Toyota. This video is about Scion, the cool brand that should have been better, but it was the right car with the wrong audience. What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and welcome to The Breakdown, where we talk about everything cars, news, and reviews. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Digging a little deeper, I had no knowledge of Scion outside of the fact that the TC is a slow, fast car and the FRS is a fast, slow, slow, fast car. And I got to thinking, what is Scion and why didn't it make it? And if you know anything about this channel gives you a lot of context into not only the news and review side of things, but more importantly, the historical events that led up to certain car makers' decisions that influenced the market as a whole. And in this video, we will be going over not just what Scion is and what it is not, but more importantly, why it should have been bigger and also why it was the right car, but for the wrong audience. So with that being said, stick around and stay tuned because you are now watching The Breakdown. Toyota. I have a very special relationship with Toyota in that Toyota, in my experience, I've only had one, which was the Corolla, and the Corolla was fun, but you know, meh. But anyway, this video isn't about Toyota. So getting into it, Toyota for a long time was seen as a reliable vehicle, as I said at the beginning of this video. But towards the 1990s, they decided that we need to spice things up. I don't know, throw some seasoning on it. And so thus they would launch Project Genesis. Project Genesis was a very, very, very interesting segment for Toyota as it was their cool brand.
So not like a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. Right, Regina? Please stop talking.
I don't know who makes this stuff up, but the thing is that Project Genesis was supposed to be an effort for Toyota to be able to create some youthful cars because the Camry, the Corolla, and even the Land Cruiser and many others, a little long in the tooth, guys. With the exception of the RAV4, most of them were pretty late into the scene. And so Toyota had decided that at one point or another, they were going to create something for the incoming generation of buyers. So thinking a little bit ahead, they decided they were going to launch Project Genesis. Project Genesis consisted of 3 different vehicles, one of them being the Toyota MR2, which was supposed to be their small mid-engine 2-seater, the Toyota Celica, which was a front-wheel drive sporty coupe, and funny enough, their best seller, even though it's crazy, the Tercel converted Echo. Now the Echo was mid at best. And so with that, Toyota tried to make Project Genesis a thing. They tried to make fetch happen, and it flopped. Shortly after, between 1999 and 2001, Project Genesis would eventually be discontinued.
Oh, dang it.
So, of course, Toyota was not going down without a fight, and they created the Project Exodus, which eventually evolved into Scion. Now, Scion is their youthful I can't say it with a straight face, but Toyota's youthful attempt to generate some buzz and some really hardcore stuff for the, you know, or who they thought was millennials, because it not only did not touch us, because as a self-professed millennial myself, yeah, I was still in high school, so I was not a part of that buying crew. And the 2 very important vehicles that would be a part of this lineup would be the BBX and the CCX. Both the CCX and the BBX would be a part of the Scion lineup and eventually would evolve into the XA and the XB. The XA and the XB are critical components of this story because, you see, at one point or another, Toyota decided they were going to do something funky, do something quirky, something strange. And so you would get a very small, unique hatchback that only got about 108 horsepower at launch and would eventually be reduced to 103. And you also had the XB, which was basically a very tall wagon, equivalent to something along the lines of the Honda Element. So with the XA and the XB, the program officially launched in 2003. And for 13 years, Toyota would create certain models such as the XD, the IA, the IQ, the TC, the FRS, as well as the XB. The TC and the XB were some of their most popular cars, and there were some struggles between the XA as well as the XD, particularly because Toyota really just didn't know what they wanted to do. Now, getting those models out of the way, here's a few things of what happened. Between 2003 and 2016, it was a very long and confusing run. So one of the biggest problems that happened with Scion, aside from all of its notable models, is while they were reliable, they were ultra conservative, and trying to appeal to a younger market was incredibly difficult. And even though they had a huge marketing effort behind the publishing and production of Scion, it just didn't catch on. It was like Toyota was trying really hard to get us to like it. Like they were really forcing this on us. Like, don't force things on me. I don't like being put in a box. And there were certain things that they tried to capture being, low price. There was no haggling. They even gave you over 150 customization options, and even the TC came with the supercharger. And they really tried to give us options. But unfortunately, no amount of options is going to supersede the idea that if the car is slow and the car is not unique, more importantly, if the car is not affordable, we're probably not going to buy it. And conversely, that was a bit of the issue. Scion almost was for Toyota a test bed of experimentation so that they could use the young people to kind of create some form of outlet for their engineering and testing. And unfortunately, it just did not pan out that well. We would eventually see at some point or another that Scion would begin to lead on for other models that Toyota currently has, such as the Prius Hybrid C, such as the hatchback Corolla, and the FRS. While all of these conservative approaches were great for Toyota, it only reached the same demographic that they tried to avoid. Because the thing is that while the designs were quirky, especially the XB being the most funky design of all of them, and they were incredibly reliable, most young people simply did not care about any of those things. And if you consider a few of the models that they offered, such as the TC and the FRS, which were incredibly sporty looking, they weren't sporty driving. While the FRS had the handling aspect and had the 2-liter flat, it was not exactly fast, and there's a bit of a butt of a jokes going on with the FRS and the BRZ because people pretty much know it's not really worth your time. The other thing is, aside from getting Scion to appeal to younger brands, only older people really gravitated towards these cars, especially things like the XA, because they were familiar with such things like the Echo, which also appealed to older audiences because they like the conservatism behind Toyota. A lot of the other vehicles like the XB and the TC and the FRS and the IA and the IQ especially, which is probably the most misunderstood car of all of Scion's lineup, many of the older buyers who had the buying power to be able to afford these cars simply did not appreciate the packaging that these cars came in, which is a bit ironic because that was the whole point of going away from the design of Toyota and do a spin-off brand. You see, the other thing is that Scion is also Japanese without context. It offers a lot of the character that is notorious over in Japan. However, the branding behind Scion doesn't really tell you that that's where those designs derive from. And if you want to look at the overall marketing aspect, it kind of gave you a little more SEMA vibe. If you were to be in the SEMA auto show, it would have been great for that sector. In fact, a lot of the SEMA presentations for Scion were incredibly amazing. But the real problem is that a lot of them either required a load of tuning, or they just did not offer the performance that most younger buyers simply look for. There's a reason why the Camaro and Mustang sold as an appeal to younger buyers as opposed to something like, a Scion TC. In addition to that, the other problem that happened with Scion is that there were no SUV offerings. While the XB was an incredibly tall wagon and very popular amongst the masses, it didn't have a SUV feel, and At the time of the development of Scion, the automotive industry was going to a bit of a different place with cars as we begin to evolve away from the traditional sedans and begin to change over into crossovers and SUVs. Particular things such as the CR-V and the RAV4, as well as the X3, which were kind of the pioneers for the SUV market. And being that this was a spin-off brand, SUVs and crossovers were becoming increasingly popular amongst younger buyers because as many of our lifestyles began to change, a lot of those crossovers seem to mesh. But if you look at Scion's lineup, none of them offered those kinds of offerings, and that SUV crossover offering could have been a pivotal change for Scion, as it would have not only offered something that was just as practical as the XB, but more importantly, something that was more affordably priced. As you all know, CR-Vs and RAV4s are not cheap. And since we're talking about pricing and branding, another huge hit that happened to Scion is that there were no standalone dealerships. Now, I will say from a cost standpoint, it's incredibly expensive to create a dealership specifically for a brand that does not sell. See Genesis, Hyundai, and Kia. But the thing is that for Toyota to have combined the Scion brand with the Toyota brand in the same dealership, it almost gives more of an accessory than it does an actual car brand. And to be honest, many young buyers simply did not see the difference in Scion and actually preferred Toyota. In addition to pricing, another focal point for Scion and hurt point is that by not having a standalone dealership, in which I get is incredibly expensive for any car maker, the problem is that you drive a lot of the traffic that would ordinarily come as a standalone and have to be marketed specifically towards younger buyers. It became incredibly difficult for them to justify the looks of the Scion brand as opposed to seeing right next to them something they're more familiar with driving. Conversely, a lot more of the older crowd who was supposed to be buying Camrys and Corollas enjoyed the funky styling and the price point of the Scion and simply thought, well, hell, if I'm gonna get a Toyota and I'm gonna get it at a slightly more affordable price, I might as well go with that. And because of all of those things, it created a vacuum effect where you typically would have Toyota consumers buying Toyotas going into Scions and Scion consumers going back into Toyota. Unfortunately, with all of those things, this began to create a perfect storm that basically would destroy Scion as a brand and eventually moving and dissolving and removing a lot of the Scion brands and dispersing them to their appropriate Toyotas. The Scion brand should have been bigger because in today's world of expensive cars, we need something along those lines, and it may have just been ahead of its time. All those things aside, it is my hope that Toyota will eventually come to the light and try to offer something similar, but as of right now, as we move into electrification, it is almost not possible. But you guys let me know what your experience with Scion was like and if you would do it all over again, because Scion seemed as though it was a brand that was supposed to be a bit more intentional, but unfortunately it just went to the wrong people. And with that being said, until the next episode, I will see you guys later.